This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer coming, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den. And welcome into the Huskies Warming House Podcast, episode number 126. Here in the den, myself, Noah Grant, alongside Nick Maxon. Nick, it's a pleasure to have you here on this Saturday, I guess, afternoon, pushing into the evening here as we recap and preview some more college hockey and women's world hockey in our extra ice session. Going to be pretty exciting to talk about the start of that tournament that has been a long-awaited tournament. Couple of current and former St. Cloud State Huskies that are on the docket for that tournament, and a handful of them doing pretty well. So excited to talk about that, as well as the team coming in, unfortunately, Nick, at number 3 in the standings. So for those of you keeping track of our NCHC previews,
we skipped a number.
Yeah, you now have an idea of where a particular team that we cover might be sitting, but we'll explain more. There's more to that story than just a flat out ranking on that one. So we took a lot of thought into that one and kind of went back and forth. So besides that, a very short Huskies Illustrated Weekly Roundup, and of course we start as always with Center Ice View News and Notes. Center Ice View News and Notes. Center Ice View provides you with the best coverage of St. Cloud State Huskies hockey, from game notes, recaps, photos, and more. Go to centericeview.com.
Center Ice View News and Notes, Noah, the Illustrated Weekly Roundup, as always. Just a handful of signings to talk about this week. Detroit finally re-upping Philip Zadina, 3-year deal, about $1.8 million a season to keep him as a Detroit Red Wing. How about this one? Tampa signing D-man Philippe Myers. 1-year extension worth about $1.4 million. Already signed at $2.55 million this season, so nice to Tampa's looking ahead and give him an extension well before they needed to, essentially. But the biggest one. I was just
going to say, he was the guy that obviously was part of that Ryan Mcdonough trade too, and a lot of people were thinking the Lightning were just going to buy him out for cap space. So good for the Lightning to really, I don't want to say give him a chance, but they didn't just pick him up just for collateral cap damage. They intend to use him. So
Yes, they do. And like I said, a good pickup for Tampa going back, even though it's, not, fun to lose a defenseman of the caliber as Ryan Mcdonough. Yeah, he may be not the most fleet of foot, and he's definitely, maybe showing some signs of aging, but still a very good, well-rounded defenseman. And I tell you what, Nashville is excited to have number 27 again from South St. Paul. But the biggest signing, Noah, it's Phil the Thrill. Yes, Phil Kessel, $1.5 million deal in with the Vegas Golden Knights of all teams.
Must have good hot dogs down at T-Mobile.
Something. Well, at least it's not the new trend, which is a hot dog straw. Going around.
Yeah, I saw that, the guy at the baseball game.
The baseball game,
but, here's the thing. I can't believe we're talking about this. I'm not a fan of it. It's kind of gross, but at the same time, I don't really care what other people do at this point. I work in a hospital, so that's a good day if somebody's just drinking beer through a hot dog straw. But how many of us have taken a Twizzler and drank water through a Twizzler? Is it really that different? I don't.
A little bit, but anyway. Interesting, right? Because Phil Kessel is he's a still motivated player. Again, he's 34, so he's getting up there, but still, even with Arizona, maybe his numbers weren't reflective, but you kind of wonder how much of that is, and no disrespect to Arizona, how much it is being on a team of like the Arizona Coyotes, probably does hurt a little bit. I still think he's some left to put in the tank, and that's a pretty good team-friendly deal. And for a team that could use a little bit more oomph at a cheap cost, you could be a pretty good depth forward and contributor, and dare I say, maybe with the right mix, he could actually have a nice rebound season. Don't you agree, Noah?
Yeah, 52 points in 82 games for him last season. In fact, he factored in on just under 22% of the Coyotes' total scoring last year. So that gives you an idea of how productive he was in a team that really was not very good. And, the biggest thing for Phil Kessel, and we know that this has been a priority for him from day one. He really likes playing in buildings that have more than 4,000 fans. It's really important for him to, and obviously Vegas has that. I'm kidding. That's very facetious for those who weren't following that. I mean, I'm sure he does, obviously, but a much bigger building than where Arizona is headed this season. So it's kind of a nice little rejuvenation for him. I would have liked to seen him go to any other team but Vegas, just with the recent brouhahas that they've had, but it's a low risk, high reward contract. I mean, he was a guy that, 52 points in 82 games in your mid 30s is, nothing to scoff at in the NHL. So pretty good pickup. I know he was rumored to be in Minnesota potentially, and at that price point, I don't know why the Wild maybe wouldn't pull the trigger on something like that. Maybe just as having a power play specialist winger, but at the same time, the young guys are obviously coming up in the state of hockey too. So good to see the former Golden Gopher get a chance down there in Sin City.
Yeah, and I still think $1.5 million may be over the Wild cap limit. So
yeah,
but I digress. Speaking of $1.5 million, that is very well worth spending. Carolina giving out that same term to Paul Stastny on a year deal. For Paul Stastny, Noah, he's still at his age now, mind you, he's 37. 36 or 37, 36. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Still had 45 points in 71 games. He's had maybe some injury issues over the last couple of seasons, but still a very valuable centerman as a depth centerman. And how about this? Between the faceoff dot, one of his key strings, over 57% last year. And you talk about, the game and puck possession and why and how that's become so important. Well, it starts in the faceoff dot. If you can control faceoffs, whether it's trying to win one back in the defensive zone or gain an advantage in the offensive zone, this is a sneaky, nice little pickup here for Carolina.
Yeah, Paul Stastny has been a wild killer for a lot of years too. So it's nice to see him move out of the division away from Winnipeg and over in Carolina. Carolina's a weird team. They're like if another team tried to copy like the Golden State Warriors, like you bring all the veterans into the fold, except for the fact that the veterans are like somewhat slightly past their prime a little bit. And it's like an off-brand version of Golden State, so to speak. So it's an interesting experiment that we're going to find out if it works this year.
And it's, dare I say, they're going for it this year, 100%. Again, bringing in Brent Burns, again, Paul Stastny, some nice depth. I mean, there's a lot to like about Carolina, but then again, there's a lot to like about them last season. Still, unfortunately, fell short, I believe, in the second round. So how about this, though? Speaking of not falling short, meaning falling short of the contract signature line, a couple of RFAs with the New York Islanders. Also re-inking with the club. First one, Noah Dobson, 3 years, $4 million annually. Alexander Romanov, again, the recent pickup from Montreal in that trade, 3 years, $2.5 million. And then Kiefer Bellows, the Minnesota native. Bellows might be a last name people even across my age might remember. 1 year, $1.2 million for his contract. So Islanders trying to keep some of the young guns within their system since, they can't seem to get anybody else in the building. Lou Lamoriello apparently just striking out swinging with the UFA market. Let's go right down the RFA market and get the job done there. Yeah, definitely. Kiefer Bellows is a little bit of a curious case, the 19th overall pick a couple of years ago, and only 67 total NHL games for him. So trying to see if he can live up to that contract. It's been a bit of a rocky road for him. Of course, the former U.S. national development team player. So wishing all those guys the best of luck next season in the NHL. Two more topics here to roll through. After 14 seasons, Kyle Terrace retiring from the National Hockey League, 425 points in 776 NHL games. Played for 4 teams, started his career with Arizona, the team that drafted him. Didn't really have a whole lot of success in the desert. Went to Ottawa next and really kind of took off, earned some big contracts there. Over to Nashville for what was kind of a very mediocre
tenure and then had a slight little resurgence in Edmonton to end his career. He's only 33 years old, so he's a guy that was actually in and out of the league a lot quicker than I think a lot of people remember. And he was a guy that, like I said, after he left Ottawa and stopped playing for the Sens, he kind of became lost in the depth charts for some of these teams a little bit, but still a decent little player.
Yeah, and it was such a curious case, especially Nashville, fans when they brought him over, to bolster the lineup. They really were expecting a lot more production than we got from him, and like you said, very curious case. It just never seemed to make sense where the lack of production, like what the reasons were behind that. Granted, that he played on teams where there was Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson, Philip Forsberg, so he was surrounded by plenty of talent. And for whatever reason, and maybe just one of those curious cases where it was a perfect mesh in Ottawa, maybe just had the right teammates up there with the Sens that really was able to be most beneficial for his game. But as you mentioned, not fantastic in Arizona. Ottawa, that was where I think most people will see or remember most of his body of work from. And then Nashville started off promising, but really, really steep decline there. And then Edmonton, just a cup of coffee as a depth sign, and even then was in another lineup. So as you mentioned, 33 years of age, I wouldn't have guessed that he would have retired this young, but unfortunately for Terrace, NHL career, at least his playing days, is over for him as well.
Yeah, you go back even 5 or 6 years, those tail end of the Ottawa years, and I don't think you would have really guessed that he would be out of the league, within half a decade. But nonetheless, speaking of guys out of the league, our last topic here, kind of a sad one here. Columbus says Alexander Texier will not join the Blue Jackets this season, per the advice and recommendation of the NHL and NHLPA's Substance Abuse and Behavioral Health Program. Now, from our understanding, here it is more on the mental health side of things, not related to substance abuse. So he said, quote, "During the past year, I have experienced some personal issues and challenges, and I feel I need to be close to my family at this time. This is a hard decision, but it is the best one for me right now." Blue Jackets general manager Jarno Kekalainen said, "Alex and I recently had a very long conversation in which he indicated to me that he was not ready to resume a career in the NHL at this time. We are disappointed that he won't be joining us this season, but his mental health and well-being remain top priority, and we will continue to support him in any way we can." So this came out a couple days ago, and a day later, per the agreement with the NHL, players in this program can sign a one-year contract in Europe. He has done that with the ZSC Lions in the Swiss League in Switzerland, which is just over a 260-mile drive from his home in France. So a little bit closer to family, some mental health things going on. So, this is something that I think, to be frank, you probably wouldn't see 5 or 10 years ago, coming out. And I think with the recognition of mental health and this health and safety of players coming to the forefront here, it's sad to see him go, because I think he had a career year last year before he got hurt in January. He's a promising young player. Hopefully he comes back to North America at some point, but you hope that he finds, the inner peace and strength that he's looking for.
And I think the big question a lot of fans have is, so he's not ready to join the NHL, so why go over to Europe and play hockey, right? It's interesting, right? Because when we talk about professional athletes, right, regardless of whether you're working on mental health or, again, could be substance abuse or something, right? You're still a professional athlete, which means, you're still trying to keep your body in shape. And I think as a competitor too, right? I think we often forget that these guys just, they kind of sometimes will make sacrifices on themselves, including mental health, so that way they can compete, right? And so it's one of those deals where it's probably a sense of normalcy. Again, being close to home probably helps. Again, we don't know the full extent of the reasoning. We have speculative information at best, but I, like you said, I think the biggest key takeaway here is that, it seems like there really has been a shift from not only the league, but also even the organizations to really be supportive and to say, hey, you're going through some things. We have a program in place. We have support for you in every way we can. Yes, take some time away. Yes, get healthy, both in the mental side of things, if that's the case. And when you get back, and as you mentioned, promising young player, he's good. We'll put it that way. But can hopefully even flourish more after things hopefully get sorted out. And as you mentioned before, hopefully that we do see him back here in the U.S. and the NHL in a year's time.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking of sorting things out themselves and a lot of stuff to go through, we're going to go through our next NCHC preview here in the main show. And welcome into the Huskies Warming House podcast, episode number 126 here. And we are creeping down to the second half of our NCHC previews here. Our next team on the docket, Nick, coming in at number 3, the Minnesota-Duluth Bulldogs, who, in case you haven't picked up on this, we are going in reverse order of the grid order, so to speak, for the teams and what we believe their finishing order will be in the standings next season. Number 8 was Miami, number 7, Omaha, number 6, Colorado College, and number 5, Western Michigan, which means that the number 4 St. Cloud State Huskies, which will be our last NCHC preview regardless, we have them slotted at that spot. Duluth comes in at number 3 here. And before you're a St. Cloud State fan and you shut us off, we do have a reasoning for this. Don't forget, this is a team last season, of course, playing in Amsoil Arena, which was completed right around 2012 in Duluth, Minnesota. Capacity of 6,726, a beautiful, gorgeous building that they play in up there in Duluth. What a perfect hockey building. Scott Sandlin in his 23rd season with the club this upcoming year, with Adam Krause in his 5th campaign. And then Cody Chupp in his first season as an assistant coach with the team, spent the last 8 years in the USHL, 3 of those with Green Bay, 3 with the Lincoln Stars, and 2 with the Muskegon Lumberjacks in the USHL. He makes his first appearance at the Division I level. And then Brant Nicklin, who's the goaltending volunteer coach in his 9th season, has some current goaltending records still with this team to this day. So had a really good career in the late 90s, early 2000s. So, Nick, we talk about that we have this team at number 3. This was a team that NCHC finishing wise last year was 5th out of 8, tied with St. Cloud for 36 points, lost the tiebreaker to St. Cloud, but sure shoved it in the Huskies' face the following weekend.
Yes, they did.
We have this team at number 3, and you and I kind of went back and forth where I had St. Cloud at 3, you had them at 4. We kind of talked about it a little bit and thought, maybe St. Cloud, this is a matchup that Duluth, we have them at 3, but maybe by a point or 2. I mean, these are 2 teams that are almost identical here. For you, since you were the advocate for this team, and rightfully so, I think, looking back at the incoming freshmen and all the other things that we talked about personally, what is it about this Duluth team that you saw last year moving into this year that you feel puts them in the top 3 in the NCHC?
To me, their defense and their goaltending, to me, is really, and granted, that's the trademark of the Scott Sandlin coaching, right? Yeah. And he's getting some help, both up front, which helps your defense, but also what's an experienced NCHC player, Derek Dashke, the transfer again from Miami, who I think has a little bit more to prove, and I think he will be a nice slot into to Scott Sandlin's system. And to me, again, there's going to be a lot of talk about Isaac Howard, rightfully so. Holy cow, is this kid going to be something to watch? I think one of our friends, Alex Micheletti, had mentioned he's probably the Rookie of the Year watch. I would tend to agree with that. There's a couple of forwards these next couple of weeks that we'll be chatting that will have a chance to get some votes into that category and be ones to watch. But again, I think it's going to be a different mix, though, for Duluth. And why I think I have them at 3 is where they struggled last year a bit. Yeah, they weren't the best, maybe, in terms of a Scott Sandlin type team defensively. They also struggled at times to score. I think both are going to be very much improved in front of their goaltending this year, which is a big reason I'm seeing a bigger jump from them this season. And also close games, if I remember correctly, they were about even par with those close games within a goal. I know you probably have the Noah Grant advanced analytics in front of you.
Sure do.
That hopefully I remember correctly on these, or I'm at least close. So
Nick, I don't want to say that you were bang on the money here, but they were 8-8 in 1-goal games last season, exactly 500, which ironically, Nick, their conference record, they were exactly 500, 10-10-4 last season, 23-16-4 overall for a .571 winning percentage, 43 games played for them. They had 1 exhibition win to start the season against Wisconsin last year, a 4-2 victory for them. 24 conference games as always, 12 non-conference, 4 conference playoff games, and 2 NCAA tournament games. So they played 43 total games, a lot of hockey for this team last year.
A lot of hockey, yes.
You talked about some of the trends of this team, and this team was a very middling team because they had some things that really made them great, that made them successful in what Scott Sandlin's brand was. But then there were other things where it was like, that doesn't generally match up with what you would think. So 10-7-2 at home, 9-8-2 on the road, and 3-1 in neutral sites, like very par across the board in terms of where they were playing. Overtime record reflects the similar things. Now, this is a team, as you talked about statistically, shots by period, their shot differential, one of the best in the NCHC, plus 169. Nick, their scoring by period overall, plus 16. A very low margin for how much they outshoot their opponents, right? Plus 11 in period number 1, minus 7 in scoring in period number 2, plus 11 period 3, and plus 1 in overtime. So, and they were a team that, they averaged a very low goals for per game, 2.6 goals for per game, one of the lowest in the NCHC, but they gave up one of the lowest in the NCHC as well, 2.21 goals against per game, and conference wise is pretty much reflected. So they were about 500 in almost every aspect. 17, 5-3 when scoring first, 5-11 when they got scored on first. Like a very natural stat line as far as like those sorts of things. Being outshot by an opponent or outshooting opponent, they were like 500 in both categories. They were winning as many games as they were losing. So it was really hard to get a beat on this team that if they were leading after 1, they were doing all right. But if they weren't leading after period 1 or period 2, all bets were off for this team, even though they were likely outshooting their opponent by about 4 or 5 shots per game. It was a very weird season for them last year. They took 1 penalty more per game than their opponent, which is not Scott Sandlin-esque. Like a very undisciplined. 17.7% on the power play, only 25 tallies for them last year, which is not terrible, but it's not great. Very good penalty kill last year, though, 84.4%, only allowing 24 tallies last season. So this was a team, my last little thing here, their most number of wins came against Denver, Western, and St. Cloud, to which they all had 3. Miami, Minnesota, Bemidji, and Alaska Fairbanks, they each had 2, and single victories against the Fighting Hawks, the Tigers, the Omaha Mavericks, Michigan Tech, Wisconsin, and Providence. On the other side of that, their most number of losses also came against Denver and North Dakota with 3 respectively. Western Michigan, Northern Michigan, and Mankato beat them twice. St. Cloud, Miami, Omaha, and Michigan with single regulation victories against this team. And they had 4 contests that went to the shootout last year. They beat Colorado College, they lost to Miami, and they split 2 shootout contests with the St. Cloud State Huskies. So this was a team that finished 5th out of 59 in the pairwise, a .631 winning percentage. But you look at these stats and you're like, how? Like playoff time, they turn it on, but it's like you look at all these stats and you're like, where did this team come from? It's almost like a game. How did Scott Sandlin do it again?
Well, actually, we have an answer for you on that. So, essentially when they lost home ice, right? From what we understand, Scott Sandlin, during the week leading up to the first round of the NCHC playoffs, literally went in the locker room and said, this is now minimum expectations. You're going to defend. You're going to do what I need you to do, or guess what? I will find somebody else who will, if you're going to do the train, right? And again, we've seen Scott Sandlin teams, I don't want to say turn it on, but just like go up a level. But throughout the entire season, like you mentioned, there was just such a weird, just sort of, what is this team? We just really couldn't figure out, because there were days they looked really good. There was days that they looked not so good, and there never was any consistency with the squad, and it could be even on the same weekend. I think that's what drove me nuts, and I know what drove a lot of Bulldogs fans nuts. So but as you mentioned, he got the message across. Ended up almost not allowing. Did they allow a single goal in the NCHC Frozen Faceoff, or it was like only a couple? I think Ryan Fanti had a couple of shutouts, if I recall.
Well, let's take a look here. I'm just pulling up their schedule. And, the interesting thing about this team is that, they were a group, again, when we talked about their consistency, right? They strung 3 wins together early in the season, their exhibition contest. They had a split during their icebreaker tournament in mid-October. They get 2 wins, a loss, a win, then a tie that ended up being a shootout win, a win and a loss. So, kind of just weird little scores here. Couple victories against Fairbanks, and then 3 straight losses before a victory in Denver, a blowout victory. 2 straight losses to Mankato before a win and a shootout loss against Miami. So this team just didn't have a whole lot of consistency, and that's the way that their schedule trended, similar to how St. Cloud State season went last year. So that's kind of where we had that discussion. When you were talking about the tournament, you are correct. 5 goals for, no goals against, a 2-0 victory against Denver, 3-0 victory against Western Michigan. And even when they played St. Cloud, their goal margin was 9-5 in favor of the Duluth Bulldogs. And that first game in the NCHC playoffs against St. Cloud on the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center was 5-2, but easily could have been a much higher margin. So this was a team that, I mean, you look at Scott Sandlin, we're going to talk about this freshman class that, again, Scott Sandlin, the way that he recruits, it's just like, holy, where does he find this player mix? It's impressive.
Hermantown. That's a lot of it.
Yeah, that is true. But at the same time, one of the things that Scott Sandlin is so good at, and again, we'll get to this, but he's so good at picking up players that, you know, maybe were tendered with another college team, or maybe didn't have a season that they were looking for, but were still an NHL draft pick or something like that. And they're not afraid to scoop up these guys that were, you know, had some bump along the road or had kind of an interesting career trajectory, and they bring them into the fold, they develop them, and they end up becoming great assets for this team. And like I said, it's almost like Scott Sandlin, you know, I don't want to call it a game, but it's like it's almost like a laughing matter how he's able to take so many different mixes of players and so many different teams, and either look at Hunter Shepard a couple of years ago where you rely on goaltending. You look at Scott Perunovich and the offense from the back end. Then you look at last year's team who struggled in the power play on special teams, but was able to stay in 1-goal hockey games. Like each of his teams has a different mix. And it's like he sits there every year with a brand new puzzle in front of him and just closes his eyes and just puts the puzzle together by feel. And by the end of the season, he goes, check out this picture I just made. You know what I mean? And I don't know how he does it, but there's a reason he's been there for 23 years.
And a big reason why there's been rumors of him to the National Hockey League for now the better part of the last 3 off seasons is part of it is he can take a mix and make them play the game that he wants them to play, 1, and 2, play a style of game that's going to make that particular set of players successful and execute it. And the one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough is, you know, Wisconsin is a demanding coach. Don't get me wrong. He demands a lot from his players, but he's able to connect with them. He's able to teach and develop. Like I said, that's so underrated, I think, out there for him. Now, granted, I don't know if it's as underrated now, again, when he's getting these looks potentially to make the jump to the National Hockey League. Now, granted, hasn't done that as of yet. Be curious to see if things change in the next couple of years, but
so that was actually one of our listener questions. And as you had mentioned, you know, for example, jumping the gun a little bit here, defenseman Connor Kelly, who was a sophomore last year, he's headed to Providence this year, which was unexpected from Scott Sandlin's group. And he said it was unexpected for us, but he said, you know what, we want our players, whether they play for us or they move on, we want them to be happy and enjoy life and enjoy playing the game of hockey. You know, and it takes a lot to be able to say that when you lose somebody who you were high on. And Johnny Mack asked the question, plain and simple, 23 years with this organization, is Scott Sandlin a lifer at UMD, or does he make the jump at some point?
Well, it ball's in his court, right? I think that, you know, with the rumors that we have circulating, you kind of wonder if, and I get the sense too, that it's teams and organizations reaching out to him and, you know, not necessarily him reaching out to them, you know, to see what's going on. It's a curious case. And I say that it's curious because, you know, he's won 3 national titles. He's built a one hell of a program.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like,
right. And you kind of wonder too, you know, how much, and I think this gets kind of lost in the scheme of things with hockey, is you kind of wonder what, you know, with his family, they're deeply rooted in the Duluth community, you know, to, you know, going anywhere would have to, you know, they would eventually probably would want to move with him. So there's a lot that goes into it. Right. And I think a lot of where this might change is, you know, with now Ryan, his, you know, I think his youngest son, if I recall.
Too much math for me that I don't have on my board.
Right.
So.
But I think, I believe he's the youngest son of Scott, and, you know, moving on from Minnesota State, you kind of wonder, does that change a little bit? Is that, you know, being that close and, you know, being able to watch him grow and to get a chance to maybe play professional hockey now that with that, you know, sort of journey complete, you kind of wonder if there is an itch for Scott Sandlin to coach in the National Hockey League, or to Johnny Mack's question, is he a lifer? I think after 23 years, it kind of seems like he might just kind of stick around. But you also kind of wonder what even in his mind, it's been a long time. What's the succession plan, not just for him, but also for the University of Minnesota-Duluth? And you got to wonder at one point, when does that plan kick in? But I kind of feel like he's going to be there for us a little bit while longer.
It's kind of funny too. If you ever get a chance to check out, of course, they don't have the bio for the new assistant coach in, but the bios for the Duluth Bulldogs, they're like literally novels for these coaches, especially for Scott Sandlin. They're so much fun to read. I mean, they have a lot of like personal flair to him and stuff. So it's kind of fun to read about his accomplishments. And there are many, let me tell you.
Yes,
of course, a lot of people don't know this now that they know that he was a Bulldog, but he played, of course, in the mid 80s as a defenseman for the University of North Dakota. So he actually came from, that America's wasteland, as Nick likes to call it. But beyond that, the other thing too with Scott Sandlin, one, like you mentioned, he has a very successful program. He's been there, he's done that, until he stops having that success. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. At the same time, he's also 58 years old. At some point it might just be, maybe I want to kick at the NHL, or maybe I want to hand off to somebody else who I think is fit. And I just want to spend the time with my family after coaching for 2.5 decades of hockey at the Division I level. So
a very demanding job. Let's that's the other thing. Yeah, very much so.
And definitely has handled things with class. And he's a guy that, as you and I both know, a very fun guy to talk to, just like a very straight shooter. And when they went into that playoff series against St. Cloud, they were like on this bigger ice sheet, and he was right. Everything in the season series, which was essentially a split, everything had trended to St. Cloud being the better team on their home ice. And he was like, we're going to have a heck of a time coming into this building and getting the job done. And they definitely overexceeded. And then all of a sudden, someone walked into the Duluth locker room and said, oh, it's playoff time. Anyone want to flip that switch? And someone did. And they didn't look back. But beyond that, the team from last year, 6 graduate players last year. So good veteran laden core there, 7 seniors to boot, 4 juniors, 6 sophomores, and 5 freshmen for a crew of 28 last season. A couple of guys that stood out on last year's team, pretty healthy mix of scoring, a little bit more on the upperclassmen side, but a pretty good mix for this team. Kobe Roth, who was a graduate player last year, 42 games played for him, had 29 points, 16 goals, 13 assists, 0.69 points per game, which I believe is the best points per game clip on the team. So that kind of tells you a little bit about where their scoring was at too. They were not a team that had 1 or 2 guys that they said, oh, these are our top line guys, and everybody else follow the lead. No, it was a truly all guys of the same mix, same pedigree, 3 lines, 4 lines deep, and they're just going to continue to roll. And whatever line is out there, they have the same natural scoring touch almost. 3 power play goals for him, a -3 rating. Blake Biandi, who was a sophomore last season, also played in the maximum number of games, had 1 less point with 28, 1 more goal with 17, 3 power play goals and a +15 rating for him. Kobe Bender, who was a senior last season, he played in the same number of games, 26 points for him, 3 power play goals once again. Quinn Olson, who was a junior last season, he makes a return, played in every single game, had 25 points, 1 power play goal +5. And then Noah Cates, who was a senior last year, had 24 points and 5 power play goals, a pretty good little specialist on those special teams advantages, and a +4 rating. On the back end, pretty much pinpointed 2 defensemen here, Nick. Wyatt Kaiser, of course, who was a sophomore last season. 34 games for him, if you're wondering why he didn't play in all of them. Well, because, he had something called some international play for Team USA. 19 points for him, was -2 last year, though. Kind of interesting. And Owen Galanton, who was a freshman last year, who's a great addition to this roster, played in every single game. 17 points for him. Single power play goal and a +11 rating on the back end for the freshman. So pretty good for him. So those are the outskaters. We'll start with those. Nick, this is a team, like we talked about, scoring by committee. A couple of these guys are leaving. A couple of these guys are staying. This just has the Scott Sandlin mark written all over it, doesn't it?
It does. And it's, for what we know, and we'll obviously touch on this a little bit later, but this is not going to be the same case this year. At least to me, it doesn't, with some of the new guys coming in. But, and the one thing about this group of guys you talk about, also really good people off the ice too. Really, really good people. But, and again, it's been about committee. It's always been that way with Scott Sandlin. And the one thing that I would say about this group is, maybe not the flashiest. A lot of these goals that have come through they're kind of just sandpaper, work hard, rebound type goals, and not a lot of maybe flash and skill with them. but just hard work and determination. And again, that's what the biggest thing that Scott Sandlin expects out of his players is to have that constant effort every time you're on the ice. And if you want to characterize that group, at least that was there. Again, maybe explains that maybe the execution here and there wasn't as great. And but things are about to change this season. We'll get into that here just a little bit.
You know, and they were a team that, again, they were comfortable being in a 2-1 hockey game and letting the goaltenders do the work. And Nick, this goaltender was kind of good last year.
Kind of.
Ryan Fanti, who was a junior, who is since signed with the Edmonton Oilers. Nick, 2,201 minutes for him last season. 1.83 goals against average and a 929 save percentage over 37 nuts. Games played, 20-12-4. The fact that he lost 12 games at some point in there and then the 4 ties is beyond me. Right. He was just, or Biandi, as one would say. It just that was bad, wasn't it? What wasn't bad, though, was the way that this kid played. And, of course, I got a chance a couple of years ago before he made the jump to watch him play for the Minnesota Wilderness in the NAHL and call a couple of those games. And even then, he just so poised and really came into his own last season, obviously. And you started to see the byproduct of that teaching at the collegiate level. This was a guy, a 46 save shutout performance against the St. Cloud State Huskies, Nick. What more can you say about this kid? My actual question here beyond that is he signs with the Oilers, who goaltending depth is kind of meh.
Non-existent.
Is he someone, do you think at some point you think he gets a shot?
I do. I would think that, mind you, Edmonton going out and getting Jack Campbell, to really try to push them over the edge. Edmonton trying to give Connor McDavid a taste of a Stanley Cup final. You would have to think that, at least in my book, if there was ever an injury to either one of those two starting netmenders, that he is 100% the first call up that will go to the Oilers. And, it's always interesting with goaltenders, Noah, because they are the longest in terms of developing to their full potential. Ryan Fanti, to me, is a gamer. He's a guy that you want to talk about. There's any one player that kind of kept UMD in those close games, or really just try to help them kind of, just survive some of those nights, when they were hemmed in and just couldn't get anything on offense. He was their rock. He really was the glue to this entire team. Really gave them chances to win most games, even when they weren't the best in front of them. He's going to carry that through Edmonton. And a big reason why, we already mentioned it before, it's 2 back-to-back shutouts in the NCHC Frozen face-off there in St. Paul against 2 pretty darn good teams, including the eventual national championship winner there with Denver. So, at the end of the day, 100%. Would love to see him get a shot. And I do think he will get a shot next season for sure with Edmonton.
Yeah, pretty much ran out of luck with just one single bounce at the end of the NCAA. So the Frozen Four. But Duluth, what a season they had last year. So like we mentioned, foregoing his senior season, signing with the Edmonton franchise. For Ben Almquist is headed to Anchorage. Defenseman Connor Kelly is headed to Providence. Hunter Lelig, who will be a graduate this upcoming season, he's headed to Bowling Green, as well as graduates Jarrett Lee to St. Thomas and Jake Rosenbaum to AIC. As far as graduating players here, Noah Cates, who is a senior, signed with the Flyers in Philadelphia. Again, we'll see how long it takes.
A few NCHC players in Philadelphia right now, just a few.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes for Chuck Fletcher to mess that one up.
Not long.
Not Noah Cates. Noah Cates will be just fine. It's just the question is, where will he be sent for a lot of stuff?
With a first-round pick.
No kidding. Forward Kobe Bender signed with the New York Islanders organization. Kobe Roth tryout right now with the Texas Stars in the AHL, kind of similar to Jordan Kawaguchi a couple years ago. Defenseman Louis Rail signed with the Wheeling Nailers in the ECHL. Matt Anderson on the back end signed with South Carolina, also in the
Stingrays,
EC. Yeah, Brady Anderson graduating. Casey Gilling, who was a graduate player last year, surprised he didn't get picked up by anybody or want to play. I couldn't find any information on him, so maybe he's just headed off to greener pastures.
Yeah, oh my gosh,
so.
Jinx.
Wow.
You talk about a player too. I was going to mention Casey Gillian, that I think that they really wanted more out of last year. He was a guy that I really think a lot of eyes were on before the season, that he could kind of add a little bit more offense. Didn't quite pan out with UMD, so tough. And could be possibly a reason that we haven't had any information on any signings with him.
Yeah, kind of an interesting career, though. In fact, I want to take a look. Ben Pat, the fifth-year redshirt goaltender, was the other one that ended up moving on with his graduate study, or graduation, I should say. It was kind of an interesting year for him, and I want to pull up the stats page because I had it up in front of me, and now I have to search for it again here. And by the way, for those who are wondering, some of this information, a lot of where I get it, of course, from the team websites as well, but College Hockey News has a lot of this information together in one spot as well, too. So for those who are kind of wondering where I'm finding some of this information, that would be some of the pieces there. I'm trying to pull up the stats page, and I'm doing my best. I promise. I really am.
Well, while you do that, Noah, I think, in Casey Gilling, remind me again from Miami Redhawks, was part of what was that big line they had like 3 years ago? It was Casey Gilling, fast line. In fact, it was actually one of Miami's better forward trios that they had over the past 4 or 5 seasons. I'm trying to remember a few others that were on that line, and it was actually fun to watch because they were fast, they had skill, they drove possession. So, and I think that's kind of what UMD fans were hoping to see. But again, Scott Sandlin, not really not really pushing north type forecheck with them, at least with speed.
Yeah, you're talking about Gordy Green was the other one that was on that line. That was really good too. I can't remember who the last one was, but nonetheless, I mean, they were a team that, and this is coming from the year that you and I were there in 2019-20. I don't know if they were juniors that year. Gordy Green was a senior, so
he was a senior,
but he was on that line like you mentioned. And last year, Casey Gilling actually was the next forward on this list at 22 points. So I mean, not a terrible campaign, over half a point per game for him. 8% shooting percentage was -8 on the season. Couple power play markers to his credit. Like you mentioned, I don't know if they expected more, but at the same time, I think it's a lot of pressure knowing that, you're coming from an organization like Miami who hasn't had the greatest time, and then you're expected to integrate very quickly. Not that Casey isn't a good hockey player, but integrate in a new style of play, a more fast-paced, more successful style of play, and a more successful organization. And that's a tough adjustment, and obviously changing schools, those sort of things. And then a 1 year sample size, obviously, it's kind of make or break for him. So, kind of the middle of the pack player in the end, but he was a guy that haven't heard any information from him. In terms of players coming in, goaltender Matthew, I think it's Thiessen, a graduate transfer from the Maine Black Bears. He comes in, and then, of course, Derek Dashy, like you mentioned, the graduate defenseman from Miami. Players staying for their graduate year, there are 2 of them. Forward Jesse Jocks for his graduate season, and then forward Tanner Latteru, the centerman.
Both very good.
He was +18 last season, had the best plus-minus on the team, and he was a forward. So a guy that, plays defensively very, very well.
Tanner Latteru, yes, defensively well too, but also just, really good in terms of the forecheck. And what I mean by that is getting, either the first touch, but more so, we're just really making life really, really tough for the opposing defenseman. He is in there. He knows how to funnel pucks to those areas that you want as a forechecker. He's just really, really good at doing that. And again, of course, that's when the Scott Sandlin part of it kicks in, and the game plan to have F2, F3, to be able to move the puck in the way you want to do it and just really make it tough to break out and, transition the puck if you're in your own end. So really, really good. Again, +18 shouldn't surprise anybody.
Just don't lift his stick if he's leaning one direction, and if he's on the Herbert's National Center ice.
I can't, but you went there.
Anyway, just kidding. We love you, Duluth fans, really do. And it's been a crazy rivalry the past couple of years with the Duluth Bulldogs and St. Cloud State Huskies. I mean, this is a budding rivalry, not, and I think it makes it all the more sweeter with the Brett Larson, Scott Sandlin connection too.
It does.
And it has been a very exciting thing. And I think, and we're going to get to some fan questions too, but as far as fan bases in the NCHC, it's easy to become bitter very quickly, but really there's been a lot of push and a lot of pull. In the end, the Bulldogs probably had the slightly better edge, at least last year, and got the last laugh. But the past couple of years, it's been pound for pound. It was 7 games.
St. Cloud, I think, won 4 of them.
Yeah, the previous season, and then last year, they had a lot of matchups too. So a very exciting series, and of course, they are the teams that always meet each other at the end of the season too. And for whatever reason, they seem inexplicably linked in the standings as well too. So this season, let's look forward to it. Let's talk about that freshman group of 10 that are coming in this year. 3 graduate players on this current roster, 3 seniors, 5 juniors, 5 sophomores, and 10 freshmen. That is about as even of a plate spread as you can possibly get there, Nick. 26 26 players on this squad, a little bit of a shorter roster right now, so to speak. 15 forwards, 8 defensemen, 3 netminders, 6 of those forwards being freshmen, 3 defensemen are in their first year, and then 1 freshman netminder that I happen to have had the privilege of watching again last season that had a very good year last year. So, well, let's start on the forward side, shall we? This is some kid named Isaac Howard, who's a 2004 Hudson, Wisconsin native, 5'10", 181, 60 games played for the U.S. under-18 team, was plus 31 last season, 82 points for him, 33 tucks, 49 apples, and a 2022 first rounder at number 31 by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Nick, the listener question, of course, is in here somewhere. Like you had mentioned, Alex Micheletti, will Isaac Howard be NCHC Rookie of the Year?
He definitely is going to be up there. No question about it. Again, when you're a first round pick, and I'm probably going to pick on a few people, not by name when I say this, but yeah, it's a projection. No question about it, but it's a projection based not only on analytics, but also, how he plays the game, right? Wicked release, plays the game at a fast pace. And not only that, but the hockey IQ with him, I think, is really what's going to set him apart. When you can both set up and get your apples, but also be able to pot the puck when you get opportunities, he's a well-rounded player. And again, was a plus 31, plus 33, you said, which means you're also, dare I say, defensively responsible. So he's a 200-foot player. Scott Sandlin, again, known for developing players. He will continue to develop, a more well-rounded style for his game. And he's going to give him a little bit more teeth on the razor blade. This is going to have a little bit more offensive punch to a Duluth squad that, dare I say, didn't have that one guy, maybe Kobe Bender was last year. I know for St. Cloud Statesmen, he was a killer for the Huskies. This guy is going to be a thorn in a lot of guys' sides here for the NCHC. He's going to be fun to watch, especially for a Duluth fan, and even for pure hockey fans like you and I. It's going to be fun to see his development for sure.
Yeah, we had another listener at Dees204 who also asked what kind of impact can we expect from guys like him and Ben Steeves coming in. Ben Steeves, the next forward. Kind of interesting. Isaac Howard wearing number 3, Ben Steeves wearing number 6 on the forward side here. So some lower numbers on the forward end. The Bedford, New Hampshire native, 5'9", 168, a left-handed 2002 shot. And you say, wait a minute. That's a little bit undersized. Well, let me tell you something, good listeners of the Huskies Warming House podcast. 77 points in 70 games played with Sioux City in the USHL for a plus 31 rating as well. 45 tucks last year for Ben Steeves. So he may be a little bit undersized, but I don't know. People must just be missing him or something because he sure knows how to put the puck in the net. Yeah,
and you kind of wonder too, and this is going to be where, there might be something to the size adjusting to NCHC, which can be, depending on who you play. Again, let's talk about Omaha and some other hard-hitting, physical type teams. Does his game allow him to create space? Does his game allow him to have those same opportunities he was having in the USHL? That's going to be one to watch. Now, again, there's some natural skill set there. Again, maybe slightly undersized, so there will be something to watch there. But the skill set's there, and I guarantee you, if he's 5'9", probably pretty quick on his feet too. So will be fun to watch. And for Scott Sandlin's, again, game plan is, I guess, how does he defend? I think that's the other big thing too, is it sounds like, again, plus 31 is a lot of points there, but can you play a full 200-foot game? Again, size a little bit different how you approach it, but again, the skill set's there. And again, Sandlin will definitely get him developed for sure.
And I think Huskies fans will get a good look. A guy like that who's a water bug, who has a lot of speed, how do they react to playing on an Olympic sheet, for example? And how do they defend? Because it definitely changes things compared to Amsoil Arena, which, of course, like many other college buildings, is the regular NHL size sheet. Cole Spicer, the late addition, the Grand Forks, North Dakota kid, 5'10", 176, the left-handed 2004. It was a 2022 fourth-round selection, 117th overall by the Boston Bruins this past draft. And he was a guy that decoded from the University of North Dakota, 58 games played with the U.S. under-18 team last year, 39 points for him and a plus 24 rating. Scott Sandlin has not been shy, and we'll get to this a little bit later, to tap into that North Dakota pipeline or that Midwestern pipeline a little bit, grabbing a Grand Forks kid and Cole Spicer. This was a guy that I think a lot of teams in the NCHC slowly had on their radar as a guy that could be a good little depth forward that had a high ceiling and a chance to develop. Going to wear number 11 for the Bulldogs here. You think we'll see a lot of him?
Probably. Again, he fits the mold. Again, if you don't have to be with Scott Sandlin's with his style and the way that his game is. As long as you skate, work hard, and again, just make the right smart hockey decisions, you can succeed in Scott Sandlin's system, and you can develop. So he may be not the most naturally skilled player, but trust me, Scott Stalin, if there's one thing about his squads, he gets a lot out of his role players in those bottom six. So he's the perfect mesh for this system. And, as long as, again, you can kind of assimilate and tack onto that style quick, I think we will see a lot of them.
So the one that's going to be interesting, wearing number 12 next season, Jack Smith, the St. Cloud, Minnesota product, 5'11", 183, a left-handed 2002 shot. 16 points in the last 57 games over the past 2 seasons for Sioux Falls in the USHL. He's a 2020 fourth-round selection at 102 by Montreal. Has had a lingering shoulder injury, both from 2020 and also last year, moving into the training camp for the Canadiens this season, that only limited him to 10 games last season in the USHL. So he's kind of a question mark, I think, for us right now. Yeah. So we'll have to see how that kind of rehabs and if he can get back to the speed. I did have a teammate a couple years ago that played for the Fargo Force in the USHL, and he ended up dislocating each shoulder 3 times on each side and just was never the same player just because of the weight that he couldn't bear. So you hope that he's able to kind of rehab that and get back to form here, because good hockey player, just has had a tough couple of seasons especially last year, just with the injury bug, it seems like. So wishing him the best of luck. 2 more forwards here moving on here. Nick, how about this? Kyle Bettins, the Winnipeg, Manitoba native, a 2001, had 36 points with the Youngstown Phantoms in 56 contests last year, 29 points with Omaha in the USHL the year before. Is this a big body? How about 6'3", 216-pound right shot forward?
Yeah. And, it's interesting too, because Scott Sandlin in the past has had some trees, especially in the back end and also, in his depth position. So you talk about, how Scott likes to use those sizable players, especially in those role type categories. This is exactly right up Scott Sandlin's mojo. So I would expect he would be an impact player just because, again, for size, hey, create havoc in front of the net. There's one thing we've noticed with Scott Sandlin's, tenure of play is, if you can do what I ask, which is, be just a pest in front of the net, and just maybe have some quick reactions, you'll be successful. And I can imagine he's going to give a lot of defensive pairings fits if that's where they park him, and guarantee you Scott Sandlin will park him in front of the crease.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of tenacity and good production for a bigger guy too. Sometimes you don't see that production, but it's pretty good points per game clip for him last season. Final forward here, number 37, Luke Johnson, also coming from St. Cloud, the 5'10", 168-pound left-handed 2001, played with the Lincoln Stars in the USHL last season. 64 contests for him, 34 points for him. Pretty decently productive little season for him. Good little addition, I think, on the forward side as well, too. Back end, the other Lincoln Star is Joey Pierce from Ely, Minnesota, which I tell you what, if you've never gotten a chance to go up to Ely, I would love to get a cabin up there. Just a nice little place to kick back and relax. Yes. Side note, 15 points for him in 64 contests on the back end. 6'0", 207 pounds, right-handed 2002. So a big body on the back end. Defensively, the other two, Riley Bonardchuk, 42 games played for him with the Okotoks Oilers in the AJ, was the assistant captain last year, had 34 points, is actually from the same town in Alberta. The 2001 is 6'3", 194, a left-handed shot. Oof, so some big boys coming in here on the back end, and it's kind of funny. I mean, you look at Aiden Dubinsky, who's also 6', 185, right-handed 2004. So some young guys coming in this freshman group. He's from Highland Park, Illinois. He played in 64 contests with Tri-City last year in the USHL. Only had 15 points from the back end, and I say only very facetiously, but was also plus 20 last season for Tri-City. So good on the back end for him too. So final forward and 3 defensemen there. What do you like from this group besides the fact that you, of all people, Nick, I hate to poke fun at you, but would definitely be looking up at them just a little bit.
Quite a bit, actually. But again, what I like about this is perfect for the style that Scott Sandlin plays. I remember a couple years ago when it was like Nick Wolf on the back end, some like 6'3", 6'4", and it was really, really tough to penetrate the middle of the ice against the Bulldogs. You really had to take advantage of perimeter shots and, kind of, dare I say, almost fly by the center of the ice, because if you did, you were getting cross-checked. I mean, there was a guy on you, and this is going to go back to a little bit more of a heavier style for Scott Sandlin in the back end, which again is going to make life very, very difficult for, say, what was the team a couple weeks ago that we said was maybe undersized a little bit? Was that no, that wasn't Omaha. Help me out here.
It could be Colorado College.
Probably.
Miami.
Oh no, it was a Western Michigan.
Oh yeah, last week.
Yes, that
would be last week.
That was last week. You tell us everything just kind of blends together now. It's insane.
Yeah, all you NCHC teams are the same. Darn it!
I know, right? So I really do feel strongly about just the makeup, right? And again, you have some high-profile players that are joining too. That's going to add some more offensive punch. A little bit more back to the nitty-gritty on the defensive end. Zach Sandy too. I know that you had a chance to watch him, and in fact, dare I say, you have a pretty good scouting report on him. The one thing that UMD does is they seem to find the goaltender that will be, essentially, the one that's going to get them over the hump. Whether it's going back, like you said, Derek Shepard, not Derek Shepard, Matt, was it?
Hunter Shepard.
My God, my memory's just completely gone. And
I
know Caleb is going to, who am I? I don't know.
Who are you, Max Avich?
I don't even know.
Deferring to the officiating once again here.
I know. So Hunter Shepard, Zach Stayskull, Ryan Fanti, you name it. They've been able to just establish a pipeline of just really good goaltenders. And Sandy, for the listeners, because again, you saw him a lot more than I did. What are they going to expect out of this freshman goaltender? Is he going to compete with the job with Stayskull, or do you think maybe he's the one that steals the net?
It's kind of funny, and I suppose we should tell the story once again here. So, of course, the 6'1", 176-pound 2002 from Fargo, North Dakota, had 29 games played with, of course, the Minot Minotauros, who I broadcast for, again, for this upcoming season as well. Had a 2.42 goals against average and a 9.32 save percentage on a Taros team that was very poor. In fact, missed the playoffs for the first time in program history since their inception in the early 2010s. 14-11-1 for him, had the best save percentage in the NAHL. All season long. Missed about 3.5 months with a concussion, though, so that was kind of difficult in terms of limiting his play a little bit, but came back and was lights out as always. And kind of similar to your question. One of our listeners asked who stars in net with Fanti Gunn, Stayskull or Thiessen, and honestly, Zach Sandy is definitely going to get a shot here. Just the way that he's composed. The only knock on him is, as far as goalies go, he's maybe about 2 or 3 inches shorter than what you would look for your prototypical college goalie. But he challenges shooters, but he's a very calm goaltender, very quiet feet, doesn't over exaggerate his plays, keeps his hands close to his body and moves laterally very well. He's very anticipatory in his movements and just everything he does, a very quiet goaltender. You almost don't even notice him until the puck hits him in the chest. The story that I was about to tell, that we've told it, I think, a couple of times on this show, but kind of towards the early part of the season when Zach Sandy was starting to kind of gain some traction and really show his strengths in the NAHL level, I had actually kind of had a slight conversation with Brett Larson, of course, who is the head coach at St. Cloud State, and kind of said, there's a goaltender here in Minot that you maybe just kind of might want to keep an eye on here, because they were looking for goaltending depth at the time. Brett Larson didn't pull the trigger, but a couple weeks later, with North Dakota and Minnesota both looking at this kid, it was the Duluth Bulldogs and Scott Sandlin that pulled the trigger. So I don't know if they ever had that conversation, but Huskies fans could end up ruining this one, because he is a goaltender that if he's able to play against his quote-unquote size deficit, which really isn't that much of a deficit, I think he's someone that could challenge right out of the gate for the starting goaltender position if he's able to stay healthy and able to play the way that I've seen him play. Because, not to toot his horn too much, but the Bulldogs, if they get what we saw at the NHL level, they're going to have another primo goaltender. And once again, Scott Sandlin potentially has done it again.
Yeah, 100%. And, it's kind of fun to see, just that story, that arms race, especially for goaltenders in the NCHC. And, can you imagine for Zach, again, pulling the numbers that you've mentioned on a team that in front of him wasn't particularly that great. Yep. Those are impressive numbers, number one. Number two, when Minnesota and North Dakota start calling your name, dare I say, I guess that's the bigger question. How did Scott Sandlin swoop in? And was it, the 9 o'clock of the ninth green trick? Did he, tell Brad Berry or, Bob Mosco to meet me there? Well, and then, as they were there waiting for him, they went and talked to him and got him to sign. He just, again, there's an attraction and a pipeline that he's built with goaltending. And you almost kind of wonder too, for goaltenders who are looking at Division I colleges, is there a reputation for goaltending development? I would think there probably is now with the history they've had over the recent years.
So let's talk about with Zach Sandy too, the way that he struggled. The only reason I have these stats is because it was a reflection where the last game of the season for the Taros against the Bismarck Bobcats decided the final team to make the playoffs and play the St. Cloud Norsemen in the first round last year. Since January 1st of 2022 to finish the season, Minot was 9-16-2 with a -29 goal differential. Oof. And Bismarck on the flip side clawed their way back. They were 19-8-2 since that time and a +30 goal differential. So a complete flip-flop of the first half. And Zach Sandy was in net and still posted a .932 save percentage on a team that was inherently flawed in front of him, still able to have that success. So it kind of tells you what he might be able to do should he have a really good team in front of him. And we believe the Bulldogs might be one of those teams next season. Have a pretty favorable schedule coming up this year as well, too. October 1st and 2nd, they're at home against Arizona State. They have a week off right away after that before coming back to travel to Mankato to Alex Micheletti's Mavericks. October 21st and 22nd, they are at home against the Wisconsin Badgers, and then at home the following weekend against Cornell. Starting their NCHC season, I should say. Colorado College, they're headed there November 4th and 5th. November 11th and 12th, they're at home against Omaha, traveling to Western Michigan the weekend after, at home against Colorado College the first weekend of December, and then at home to finish the first half of the season against the Pios. So actually a pretty good little first half for them to kind of ease on into that schedule. Second half, December 31st, only a single game after the Christmas break against St. Thomas at home. January 6th and 7th, a home and home, first traveling, and then at home against Bemidji State. January 13th and 14th, they travel to Omaha, and then the following weekend in Grand Forks against North Dakota before coming back home to face the St. Cloud State Huskies to finish the month of January. February starts off with a home series against the Western Michigan Broncos before traveling to Denver, at home against Miami, and then rounding out, as they usually do, against St. Cloud. This one will be at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. So, Nick, fan questions. We've got a lot of them this week, so this is exciting to talk about here. First of all, Craig Hendricks, very simple question. Is Duluth really going to be that good this year?
I think so.
I think so.
I really do. I think that a lot of the challenges that they had last year are going to be a thing of the past. There's a little bit, if there's one concern, if you're a Bulldog fan, because maybe the youth and the amount of youth that you have, does it take them a while to figure it out? Injury is always a concern with any team, but I think with the right mix that Scott Sandlin's bringing in, and again, some primo offensive talent, which is something you don't normally associate UMD having. That could be really the X factor with the squad. You know they're going to be tough to play defensively. They're going to have a good penalty kill. And dare I say, with some of these new additions up front, maybe improve their power play. They're probably going to improve their scoring. This could be, dare I say, a national sleeper team. Yeah. Right out the gate. I mean, honestly, I do think they're going to be that good. Again, the big question mark is with some of the young talent and the amount of young talent, do they assimilate to NCAA Division I hockey soon? Do they maybe struggle out of the gate a little bit? But as we saw last year, even with a, dare I say, a mediocre regular season record where they almost, speaking of Wisconsin, kind of Wisconsin ruled almost themselves out of the NCAA playoffs. I don't think it's going to be that close this year. But again, Scott Sandlin's teams in years past have shown that they can take it up a couple of notches in the playoffs. And this team's certainly looking like they make up of a deep playoff team yet again.
Yeah, Christy Rollwagen, who of course is the mother of Tyler Rollwagen, who's getting ready to play for the Omaha Mavericks in his freshman season. She asked the question, Nick, who let the dogs out? And to answer that, Nick, I have no idea, but we can put him back in the kennel. That'd be nice. Beyond that, Johnny Mack, a couple of other questions that he had for us. How can their fans be so aggrieved all the time? Must be exhausting.
Well, I think there's another maroon and gold team that likes to do that too. So maybe it's just color pipeline. I don't know, Noah, but I
don't really know that they're aggrieved, because every Duluth fan, that they talk to, they're like, oh, well, we kind of cared about the game, but also look at all of our national championships. So like, good luck,
Yeah. The other thing is, if they're only following Max Beach, then maybe I get it. But that's maybe that's where the attitude comes from, is when you have the super fan that we as Max Beach. Granted, we all love to Max Beach over there, the Bulldog super fan, but I don't get that sense necessarily from the Bulldog fan base. It's not like you're playing North Dakota for God's sakes, and And again, the rivalry, especially at St. Cloud, Hockey, I think it's a competitive but friendly rivalry. I think between the two clubs, and let's put it this way: dare I say they probably might have the upper hand in this matchup here coming this year? Dare I say?
Yeah, it definitely might be an interesting one here. Kind of on a similar vein, and Max Beach actually said this was a fair question, and you and I both experienced this when we went to travel up there. Tinner Heath, who of course is really good at trivia when we had it. Why are their hotels so expensive up in Duluth?
Well, so for the last time I checked, you're kind of by the lake, so everybody wants a location. Oh wait, it's either on the hill or on the lake. Last time I checked, not very fun.
Yeah,
especially in the wintertime.
You don't pay as much for the uphill parking in the winter, though, because when you come back, your car might not be there.
No, it definitely is not there.
Speaking of things that might be there, Johnny Mac also want to know, are they and teams near them in the standings safely in the tournament next season, meaning the NCAAs?
I would think right now, yes. I think UMD is a safer bet to make the NCAA tournament again. We talked about how this team looks on paper and how I think it's trending in that direction. And I think, again, with some of the returning players, a lot of lessons learned, especially if you can carry some of that momentum that you had from the NCAA playoffs / the NCHC. I think you're riding high a little bit. And again, just trying to find a little bit more consistency in the regular season. I do think they will find that. I think you're going to see a much different Bulldog squad when they take the ice, especially when the NCHC conference schedule starts up. I think by that time in the exhibition schedule, they're going to be running in all cylinders.
Yeah, Minnesota Boy 99 wants to know, why do their seats make no sense with the gold? That's just kind of like a retro thing, basically.
It's not, for those who don't know what the Met Center was, you talk about a cluster F of seat colors. I mean, kind of a throwback to them, but not quite as exaggerant.
I don't know. If you've never been to Amsla Arena, I mean, I know some people, I guess, aren't particular fans of it. I think it's a beautiful building. When we got to go there
really is.
And do a couple of those games, I mean, it was just so much fun. Easy to get from place to place in that building. You can easily get down from the Zamboni room all the way up to the upper deck within probably 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So I know you and I had a blast when we were down there. Of course, I was down at the Zamdor interviewing Scott Perunovich's mom at one point down there. So it was a lot of fun for us, I think. So
and great broadcast position too. On the not the upper level, the press box on kind of the main concourse level. So a bit of a different look,
like suite seating almost.
Yeah, very very good seating for us as broadcasters too. And again, the got to credit the media relations and the PR staff too. Will also do a really good job of getting us set up there when we were up there, and one of the best press box foods up there too. Some really really good deeds for those who enjoyed the broadcast booth up there. I think maybe a certain radio broadcaster would agree with us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree as well. Another question coming here as well from, if I can find it here. At Dees 2004 again. What kind of progression will we see from Blake Biandi and Dominic James this year? We talked a little bit about these guys and kind of what they brought to the table. Blake Biandi, who's going to be a junior this year, was second on the team in points with 28, of course. And then you have a player who's, again, continuing to grow in Dominic James, who had a pretty decent season for a freshman, I would say. I mean, 18 points was like 6th or 7th in terms of forward scoring last season. I would not be surprised in the least to see both these guys take the jump next season.
Biandi really opened some eyes last year as he really sort of took the team on his back at times and really provided a lot of offensive spark. I would think, again, that he's going to be a big driver of that. Now, as far as progression is concerned, again, a different makeup, and you kind of wonder too, if some of these freshmen and these highly touted offensive freshmen are able to assimilate and you give them a chance to play with each other, oh boy, that could be really fun to watch if you're a Bulldog fan. So I still think the heat trends up. I still think you're going to see a lot of progression from Blake. And I think we talk about Biandi, and not only with his offense, but I think he's so underrated with his defensive play as a forward too. Really, really good at getting in shot lanes. He's really good with the stick and again, trying to force and funnel pucks into those areas that you can try to retrieve and try to transition the puck the other way. So I think that only continues to go up for Blake, and he's going to be probably, as far as upperclassmen is concerned, be the guy to watch if you're a Bulldog fan.
And we talked about it too, Nick. coming in, Blake Biandi was plus 15 and was second on the team in scoring. So definitely some really good statistics there as well. I should apologize. I said it was Tanner Latterroot that was plus 18 last season. I apologize. He was actually -3. It was actually Owen Galanton in the row above him. Yeah, on the back end. So I apologize on that one. A couple of more questions here, Nick. Derek Felska wants to know a two-parter here. Will Wyatt Kaiser win the Hobie Baker Award? And is the Hermantown talent pipeline one of the best in college hockey?
He will not win the Hobie Baker. Now, when I say that,
Wyatt Kaiser's game is not. It's not that flashy offensive Hobie Baker-esque thing. And like I'm sure you're about to allude to, it's like that's not a knock on him. It's just he's a complete 200
really good player.
Yeah, he's a 200-foot player, which just doesn't win you Hobie Baker awards.
Right. It's really tough. I mean, again, Cale Makar is the exception, right? Because his game, and he's almost transforming the defensive position in front of our eyes at the National Hockey League. But historically, unless you have those offensive numbers, the Hobie Baker candidates just don't seem to favor defensemen in that regards, right? I know Scott Perunovich, if you want to call it someone close to that. Wyatt Kaiser's game is a much more quiet than that. Now, again, he's still very gifted offensively. I think he's one of the more deceptive defensemen with his eyes and his body in terms of moving the puck. I've seen him run the power play, and man, is he good in terms of really making the penalty killers guess where he's going with the puck, because he walks the line very well. Again, his eyesight, he scans the ice so very well. So, But again, he's not really driving that many points. So I don't know. Like it could be in the mix, but to me, his natural game wouldn't garner naturally, I think, of the natural votes of the way just the Hobie is kind of voted on.
Yeah. What about Hermantown? We're kind of pumping Max Veach's tires a little bit here. The talent pipeline, one of the best in college hockey. I will say I did play against Hermantown my freshman year of high school against a guy by the name of Neil Pionk, who happened to be pretty decent. So, yeah, I would say they were pretty good with their multiple appearances in the championship game in the Minnesota high school tournament. It took them a long time to finally get over the hump, obviously, with St. Thomas, but I'd say it's pretty darn good moving into the collegiate world too.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I think Hermantown, first of all, go to AA, but I digress from that. I mean, they really could. They really could. I know that, there's been rumors of maybe why they haven't done that. But then again, you got to credit the development and the coaching that they do, because again, it's not like it's one class that's come through. They continue to have a steady pipeline of really talented players come through Hermantown. A big reason why you see them at the state tournament. We're talking for the folks listening outside of Minnesota, the Minnesota State High School Hockey Tournament. There always seem to be a big name there that not only just appears there, but they're tend to be heavy favorites to go at least into the championship game, but not take it all.
Yeah. Two more fan questions here. This one comes from Drew Smith _08. This one kind of made me laugh here. Chances Duluth meets up with Omaha at the X come March. I believe
maybe, but
I believe very much that Duluth will be there. The question is
Omaha, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Duluth I think is going to be there, but Omaha, they're going to, and I think we mentioned this in our preview. I think there's potential there, but I think there's going to have to be some cards that fall their way to kind of get them over that hump. Now, granted, NCHC playoffs, if you're Huskies fans, we know that that's not a guarantee, right? So can Omaha get hot? Maybe they can.
To be honestly fair, Duluth and Omaha might get each other in the first round of the playoffs too.
And they might, right? So I mean, it's possible. But at least as of right now, season preview, which is, totally going to be 100% accurate from both of us as we look back at this in March, said no one ever. You just never know, right? I think, again, just based on the talent level and the rosters, I think it's safer to say Duluth would be there, but Nebraska, Omaha may be a bit of a stretch as of right now. But again, not a single game of hockey's been played, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Last year, what is it? We had like Duluth 1, St. Cloud 2, North Dakota 3, Western 4, Denver 5. Yeah, that worked out well.
Really well.
Yeah. Anyway, last fan question. This one comes from our friend, our listener, Caleb J. Peabody. He wants to know how many times will Max Veach poop his pants this year, claiming the officiating is rigged against Duluth. I don't know the over under here, Nick, but I'm gonna go with at least 14 times this season, I would think.
I think you are probably a little bit conservative in that
Yeah.
gesture, but because they play how many games, like 30 some, I'd say that's probably a good
Yeah,
bar to set if you're Vegas.
maybe 2 per game. I mean, statistically, I mean, we haven't looked at it. We've only just started tracking the stat, but statistically, it has been a really high number. So, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. So, and granted, there were, well, let's put it this way: there were some that, at least initially, prior to video review, maybe there was a case, but then, well, dare we say, the two guys in the boxes here maybe broke some down, and
and I think it kind of goes both ways. I think Duluth probably, with the missed stick lift, so to speak, and then you have the little jam play,
lift,
the jam play with the shootout shot or whatever. I mean, I can see why you feel a little bit slighted with those sorts of things. And it seemed like Louis Rail was good for about a penalty a game, unfortunately, when he came to St. Cloud. But I mean, we're just here to comment on it. We don't do the officiating. So
right.
What else can we say? But something that we can keep our eyes on here, Nick, our final 2 questions, as always. If you're the Duluth Bulldogs, you want to have success in the NCHC this year. You've got a good mix of upperclassmen, but 10 incoming freshmen that you got to get up to speed. Granted, they have great skill. What's it going to take to be successful for this team? And if you're St. Cloud, you get them 4 times in the second half of the season. How the heck are they going to finally solve the Bulldogs?
So if you're Minnesota-Duluth, right, it's about getting those freshmen acclimated as soon as you can, and really getting them into a spot you feel comfortable. And a lot of that is just keeping the game simple, right? Against Scott Sandlin doesn't play like the most, what do you call it, a complicated system, but he does a simple system very, very well. So I think for them, just trying to, just get everybody comfortable, because then, hockey, and maybe we don't say this enough, but hockey is such a game, especially when you want to play a certain way, that it has to be instinctual for you to be successful. If you can feel like where you need to be without the puck, and dare I say with the puck, right, where you can just kind of feel. And it's hard to explain it, I think, to folks that never played the game. But if you can just kind of feel like, okay, if I'm here on the ice, and you almost don't have to look, right, whether it's a defensive partner or a winger, your other forward, then you can have that level of comfort that everybody's where they're supposed to be, in that trust. This Duluth Bulldog squad, with the added skill up front, a little bit more bigger bodies in their back end, and again, what could be another really good goaltending tandem in back, this team, that's going to be the key to their success. If you're saying Cloud, to me, that's kind of, how you maybe stop a little bit. Now, granted, when they see them, it's going to be late in the season. You would think at that point, the irons will the wrinkles are going to be ironed out, not the other way around, Nick. My goodness.
The irons will definitely be wrinkled out there.
Yes, they will. But you're going to have to almost sort of, dare I say, kind of drive it back down their throats a little bit. Yeah. Whereas, I think Duluth, you're going to see a little bit more aggressive style offensively, because they're going to have some pieces that can help push the pace. So with St. Cloud, you're going to have to kind of fight punch for punch with them. And I really do think that if you can maybe wear them down a little bit, the one thing that Duluth got into a little bit of trouble last season was extended time in their own zone. If you can really get them below the red line, and then also generate shots from the point, it's going to be really tough for, I think, any team to get to the interior against Minnesota-Duluth. It always has been a knock. I shouldn't say knock, but always kind of been a staple for Scott Sanders at protecting the house. So if you can try to get, be able, and I suppose for Dave Scheich, it's the grease pan goals. I think that's kind of how you're really going to be able to draw attention, and then also maybe open things up on rebounds. To me, that's how you do it.
Yeah, I think if you're St. Cloud and you're attacking it, like you mentioned, the Huskies did a really nice job of working directly into the defensive structure that the Bulldogs had last season. Even when Duluth was stuck in their own zone for long periods of time, St. Cloud was a little bit too cute, trying to make that extra pass. Just snap a puck. If you find a middle lane, get a puck on the stick, off the stick, snap a puck on net. Just create a shooting lane and get a puck through traffic. I think, it was so easy to try to make the extra cute pass, try to set up a play, and then they would shoot right into a defenseman. If you're St. Cloud, it goes back to the age-old adage that every fan with a Pabst in their hand is yelling, shoot the puck, and shoot it quickly on the stick, off the stick, and just try to find shooting lanes against this Duluth team.
It doesn't give up many.
Right. And I think the Huskies really struggled with that last year. And I think that was the difference maker, where they were outplaying the Bulldogs for long stretches of some of these hockey games. But like I said, Scott Sandlin and his club are comfortable playing low scoring games, relying on their goaltender and having the defensive storm get weathered, so to speak. On the other side, like you mentioned, getting the freshmen up to speed, I think, is going to be important. I think kind of defining, who's our goaltender and who's going to be the guy that takes the mantle from Ryan Fanti here. And I know we talked about the 3 goaltenders as well too. Having that healthy competition is nice, but I think, in the past couple of years when you had, Stass, obviously, who's going to be with the team, you had Ryan Fanti's success, you had Hunter Shepard for all of those years, not Derek Shepard, mind you. Having a netminder back there that makes you feel comfortable as a Bulldog has kind of been an MO for letting them play relaxed and realizing that if they're getting outplayed, they're even keel. We talk so much about that 5 overtime game a couple years ago against North Dakota. And Scott Sandlin talked about keeping those emotions, the highs and lows kind of even keel. And that's something that him and his coaching staff does really well. Yes. Part of that is accepting the fact that you might be under duress in an overtime. Do you trust the guys out there? Do you trust the defensive core? Do you trust the goaltender? Having good goaltending and the good defensive crew that they already have, I think is just going to make this Bulldogs team feel more comfortable. And then they can start to work on the offense that was a little bit lacking comparative to the shot margins last year. And once they get that train rolling, I think they're going to be very successful. So as always, we wish the Duluth Bulldogs the best of luck in the NCHC, of course, except against our St. Cloud State Huskies. With that being said, we will head on to our extra ice session. We're going to talk a little bit about the Women's World Championships. And welcome into the Extra Ice Session. Nick Maxon joining myself, Noah Grant, here for a very quick little Extra Ice Session here. The Women's World Championships just getting underway. I believe in Denmark is where it was at when I looked. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive it was in Denmark. I see the flag in my head, but then I also saw the Hungary flag because Hungary is in here as well. But I'm almost positive it's Denmark because they're in the tournament. They are the host team, so they do get a bid into the medal round regardless. But for those who are wondering here, Nick, Group A is the United States, Canada, the Swiss, the Finns, and Japan, rounding out the top 5 for Group A. Group B is the Swedes, who right now are leading that group, the Czechs, the Hungarians, Germany, and Denmark as well. And they played various, each team has either played 2 or 1 game respectively at the time of recording here, midway through Saturday here. So for those who are wondering, the tournament is a little bit different than the World Junior Championship. Some things are the same, some things are a little bit different. As you know, it was the top 4 teams from Group A and B that got into the World Junior Championship medal rounds. For this one, it's a little bit different. 10 teams are divided into those 2-tiered groups. After a single round robin series in each group, the 5 teams, so all 5 teams from Group A and the top 3 teams from Group B advance to the playoff round. So the quarterfinals, the best team from the A group plays the worst team from that group of 3 in the B group. Second best team in A plays the second worst team in B. Third best team plays the first team in the B bracket, and then the 4th and 5th place teams in the A bracket play each other, and they get reseeded accordingly. Now, that might all sound the same. Semifinals are the same, gold medal games, that sort of thing, bronze medal games. The only difference is the quarterfinal place losers will play placement games in a knockout format, and the winner of the 5th place game will earn their Group A seeding for next year. So that's the only difference, is that even if you get knocked out earlier in the medal round, you still have something to play for the upcoming international tournaments and the teams that will be there. So the United States currently has played 2 contests. They beat Japan by a score of 10-1 and Finland by a score of 6-1. They have the Swiss coming up in a couple days, and they play host to Canada on August 30th to finish out that matchup. So that'll be an exciting one here. Current and former St. Cloud State players, there's probably more than 4, but the 4 that I could find: Janina Newland from Finland, the forward, has 2 games played, hasn't had a point, and is -5. The Finns have kind of struggled out of the gate as of recent. Forward Laura Zimmerman, Swiss-born player, has a single assist and a +1 rating in her only game played so far. Klara Himlarova, who of course we've talked about for the Czechs for a long time now, has a single goal to her credit in 1 game and a +1 rating. And then the final one here, the other forward, the former St. Cloud State Husky, Laura Kluga from Germany, 2 games played for him. She's got a goal, 2 assists, 3 points for her. A pretty good little start to the tournament for the German-born St. Cloud State University product. So Nick, as we've taken a look, the U.S. currently leading their group ahead of Canada and the Swiss, who have played 1 less game than the U.S., and the U.S. goal differential is 16-1 right now. Which goal differential is obviously very important in international play. On the other side, the Swedes are leading the Czechs and the Hungarians in Group B here. Games just kind of getting underway here, Nick. But I think the more important question to start off here, how awesome is it that we're finally getting the Women's World Championship that has been so long awaited and so delayed by the IHF?
It's dare I say, first of all, well overdue.
Yeah.
Well overdue. And granted, the fact that this is even being played right now is sort of a half miracle too. And it should never have been that way. I remember when the men's was starting and then it was postponed because of a COVID outbreak. And then seemingly without warning, the women's was canceled too. And what you never heard was any rescheduling of those said events. Right. So it really was kind of, there was some public outcry, and rightfully so. And so to have this finally taking place and to give these very talented, well-deserving, hardworking young women a chance to compete on the international stage, again, just glad that it's here. And again, a couple of Huskies, as you mentioned, making their mark. You talk about, was it Zimmerman, right? Who's a Swiss-born, a freshman coming in. Holy cow. You talk about size. She's listed at 5'3". Noah Grant. So talk about probably a water bug there. I thought, was it? I'm trying to remember the senior defenseman we had very early on in the show that I think was like 5'4". I'm trying to remember what her name was.
You're thinking of Abby Thiessen, aren't you?
Not Abby Thiessen.
No. Let me think. Let me go back to the roster while you're
go back to the roster. So
do your job, Noah. Jeez.
Yeah, do your job. So, but very, very cool. You need a Newland again back for her 5th year, I believe, with the Huskies again electing to play another year. So, and again with international competition, it's always fun. Again, as you mentioned, a little bit of, I suppose, for the Finns, right, who've struggled. This is a bit of a surprise, I would think. The Finns, usually a very good 200-foot team. Have struggled both on the offense and the defensive side of the puck. So a bit of a surprise there. The U.S. and Canada always seems to be the marquee matchup in Group A, especially in the prelims. You're talking about two organizations that just trade blows. And in the past couple of years, Noah, when these two have had, there was an exhibition game, whether it's in St. Paul or not, that's a game that draws a lot of attention. And so no question on August 30th, when those two teams meet, that's going to be one that I think even for true hockey fans should have circled on the calendar. It's quite fun game to watch.
The two names that I can think of, Kenzie Wiley was 5'5", and then Hannah Bates, who of course is playing professional hockey at 5'4" the past couple of years.
She was a senior I'm trying to remember.
What year you're talking about? Because I just went to the year that you and I were there and then the year after. And I didn't see anybody that matched those parameters on the defensive side, unfortunately.
It was Dana. It wasn't. It was Dana Rasmussen.
Yeah, she's a forward. Yeah.
That's where I goofed up. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
Too. Yeah.
So, and good little career for her on the forward side, obviously, in terms of production. Speaking of production, the United States roster, it's kind of fun to go through that and see some of the players that are having some really good careers here. On the defensive side, Lee Steckline coming from the PWHPA, I should say, playing for Minnesota right now. Kayla Barnes playing at Boston College. Carolyn Harvey, Megan Keller on the back end as well. Savannah Harmon and Jinsey Dunn, who, of course, has had a very storied start to her career on the international stage, moving back in the past decade or so on the defensive side here. Nick, a lot of good players, a lot of professional players on the U.S. roster as well, too. Mm-hmm. Forward side, Lacey Eden, I should say, from the University of Wisconsin. Boy, she had a heck of a career. Abby Ruck, playing with Minnesota professionally, as well as Kelly Ponick as well. Grace Zumwinkle, playing for the University of Minnesota, had a chance to skate with her a little bit in Fargo. She likes to skate a little bit too. Pretty good hockey player, obviously, playing for the University of Minnesota there. Forward side as well too, as we kind of go through the list again here. Haley Skimura, coming from New Hampshire professionally there as well. Jesse Comfer from the University of Wisconsin. Hannah Brandt, Hillary Knight, two names that U.S. fans will know very, very well playing professionally from Minnesota. Hannah Bilka from Boston College on the forward side. Alex Carpenter, she's coming actually from KRS in Russia, so kind of interesting to see that name on there. Some gal by the name of Kendall Coyne-Schofield. Is she fast? I don't know. Be. Speaking of water bugs there, by the way, coming in at 5'2" for those who were curious. Also, I did not realize that Megan Keller and Hillary Knight are both 5'11". I don't know why I didn't realize that. Yeah. And then Taylor Heisey for the University of Minnesota. She's 5'10" on the forward side. Amanda Kessel playing professionally with New Hampshire. She's on the forward side as well, too. I also missed defenseman Rory Goulday from Cornell University as well. 3 netminders, Nicole Hensley, Aaron Frankel, and Maddie Rooney, of course, the former Minnesota-Duluth Bulldog, playing professionally right now, round out the netminders here. So this is a U.S. team that has some familiar names that we've seen in years past, but also has some names that are kind of fresh new faces that bring that youth infusion to this roster here.
Yeah, and I think, you're going to see a little bit of a change in the guard these next couple of years, too, with Team USA. I mean, you mentioned Amanda Kessel, Kendall Colnine, Schofield, players that have no question made their mark on the game of hockey, especially on the women's side for the U.S., but getting up there a little bit, too, right? And so you're having this nice youth infusion. And again, one thing, we've seen this on the men's side, too, is just the amount of depth of talent that they continue to develop here. And I think for the women's game too, one thing that's been really fun to see is, dare I say, like the fans' perspective, which is, it's women's hockey, they can't check, but it's like, no, these ladies are good. Yeah. Again, Grace Zumwinkle had a chance to see her skate many times, again, playing St. Cloud. I mean, she was, or dare I say, like, it was almost unfair how skilled she is. Yeah. It's just insane. So that to me has been the biggest thing is, so what's the next wave look like? And we're getting a pretty good look at it. Again, was it 10 and then 6? So 16 goals in 2 games. Not too shabby.
Yeah, and only 1 goal against 2. Canadian side players that are coming from the old WCHA, Ashton Bell from the University of Minnesota-Duluth. Of course, Emma Malte, who's been an exceptional player for Ohio State the past couple of years.
Very much so.
Great addition on the offensive side. And then, of course, let's not forget, of course, not WCHA product, but Sarah Nurse, who just got named with Trevor Zegras to the cover of NHL 23. Of course, the sister of Darnell Nurse, who plays for the Edmonton Oilers as well. And some really good players filling out this Canadian roster, too. That matchup on August 30th is going to be really exciting too. So the tournament just kind of getting underway. So we don't really have a whole lot of updates beyond that, but I think it's important to kind of put it on people's radar to give them a chance to kind of take in some of those games. Yeah. What's up?
Also, as you finish your thought, we missed some big news even last week concerning the St. Cloud women's side too.
Yeah. Well, why don't you fill us in on that, Nick, since you're on top of it more than I am.
On top of it. Molly Engstrom taking the head coaching job at the University of Maine.
Yeah.
And this was, I don't know if unexpected or this was a little bit of a shock too, because again, Molly Engstrom
timing more than
anything. It definitely was in the running for to replace Steve Mcdonough as the women's head hockey coach. For her, unfortunately, they went with a different role. Was it Brian Adelski, I believe? Yes, that is the new women's hockey head coach. So you kind of wonder if that maybe was part of the decision. Obviously, we don't know, but named to the University of Maine again as their new head coach. Definitely wanted to be a head coach, and she's going to get a good start there in Maine. So we congratulate her. It's going to stink to not see her around the Herbrooks National Hockey Center. Always a great person to chat with on and off the ice. Janelle Sergey still with the organization again with St. Cloud, but one less familiar face behind the Huskies bench there on the women's side.
Yeah, the nice thing that St. Cloud has, Janelle and Molly, of course, have built that framework as far as the recruiting side. They've done a fantastic job, obviously. And then Brian Adalski brings that wealth of experience. I think him and Janelle, at least to start, will be just fine trying to transition this group into some WCHA action. Of course, the women get started on September 25th, the same day the Minnesota Wild preseason gets underway. And then October 1st, the St. Cloud State men's team plays their first game on a Saturday. It's kind of a weird weekend with that weekend starting in October. Most of the teams playing Saturday, Sunday for whatever reason to start the season. I don't know what the reasoning is for that. I'm sure I've missed it, but
even when I was calling like that exhibition game against the University of Illinois, those were Sunday night games. So that's not unheard of. I think we often just kind of forget that first weekend's just kind of goofy. Having those Sunday type games. Again, I kind of wonder why that is. But nonetheless, there it is.
Yeah. So to kind of look forward here as we look at the rest of what our schedule has to hold, of course, next weekend, we might actually have an early recording and potentially a Friday release. We have some scheduling things to work out. Of course, Nick and I just started my last year of nursing school, and Nick, of course, is getting ready for his exciting endeavors moving forward with his career as well, too. So, Yeah, so that's the hope anyway. So we're thinking about maybe a Thursday night recording for that one. So that one might come out a little bit earlier. If it doesn't, for whatever reason, we'll try to keep you updated. It would be either probably a Tuesday morning release or at the latest Wednesday morning. We'll try not to push it beyond that, but the hope is to get it within a normal time frame for all of you listeners. Next week's team comes in at number 2 in the NCHC. Who the heck will it be? We'll probably put out a poll too. Of course, the only 2 teams remaining, Denver and North Dakota. Who the heck do our listeners think it's going to be at number 2 and number 1? The number 1 team will be the weekend after, the weekend of September 9th through the 11th, and then the weekend of the 16th through the 18th. We will cover our St. Cloud State Huskies coming in at number 4 for our NCHC previews. So with that being said, no, they're at number 4. We just did Duluth. Duluth is number 3. You goof.
3-2-1. You're right.
Yeah, look at that. See, so that's what we're saying is that Nick Maxon wants the Bulldogs to finish 4th, even though we have them at 3rd. It is what it is. What can we say? We've got that bias.
Thanks for picking me up. I appreciate that.
Well, here's the thing though. Really, both of these teams, St. Cloud and Duluth, I anticipate them to be neck and neck again. So really, those 2 teams could flip flop and very much change places. I still believe both of them are going to have home ice in the NCHC. I think that's kind of the bottom line here for us. But you'll have to see the other 2 teams that we believe are going to get home ice and who the heck is going to take the Penrose atop the NCHC mountain at the end of next season, or at least who we think, and we'll probably get it wrong like we did last year, but nonetheless, we enjoy all of our listeners and viewers joining us for the ride. For Nick Maxon, I'm Noah Grant, and we will see you soon for episode number 127.
One-timer, come in, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Terrace!
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL!
Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.